Welcome to Recovering from Religion Australia's podcast series, Unshackled. Conversations about life beyond belief, healing from religious harm, and building secular community. Recovering from Religion is a global non-profit offering hope, healing, and support to anyone impacted by religion. Some episodes include sensitive topics and mild language. Listener discretion advised. Views expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of RFR as an organisation. We're glad you're here.
Hello and welcome back to Unshackled, the RFR Australia and New Zealand podcast. I'm Christopher.
And I'm Johanna Brown. Chris, can you share a bit about your experiences with religious trauma and how did it influence your sense of self?
Okay, jumping into a really big one. Well, I think the trauma that I experienced because I was in a cult from birth actually probably shaped so much about my entire personality and life, right from the way I interact with others and view others through to my reactions to everyday situations. So, for example, I can formally get quite defensive to even a reasonable line of questioning because I was just so used to everything in my life being questioned, interrogated. But what it went back to was the trauma was based on the fact that I had no sense of personal boundaries. What was mine for me and my space and what was shared with the public. When you're in sort of a coercive control situation, as you are in a cult, you don't necessarily have any boundaries. Everything's open. Your personal life, your relationships, even in a home situation as a child. And I know that there was no such thing as privacy of space, thought, behavior, action. You were told and programmed how to think and act. Is that kind of answer it? So, Joe, I'd love to hear how you've coped or processed your own trauma.
My trauma, a lot of it was centered around my sense of self, my identity, my gender, everything was in question. I knew how I felt internally, but after 10 years of really hard indoctrination, intentionally joining a Pentecostal church, hoping that it would help, compounded on top of my upbringing, I don't know how to really put it into words, but for me growing up, I was constantly being told I was wrong in the head and even cursed. And 30 years of that does something to you. So when I finally accepted myself for who I was, and also acknowledged that I was an atheist, losing community and friends, I couldn't process it properly. So I was really angry and I pushed people away. It wasn't until I hit my lowest point, I began to accept myself more fully. And that wasn't on my own merit. I had help. I had people who cared and people who, would listen to me. And I think, that was a big part of it for me, was being able to finally talk about my trauma and process it. Not just talking to myself, but other people who actually listened, who actually cared. And, my first real experience of doing that was with Recovering from Religion in a group, online group. And, so now I can't help but to feel that it's part of my healing, even still, is not only to keep telling my story, but also listening to other people's stories, because it might seem selfish, but it validates me. Hearing other people have gone through the same thing validates me to me, right? I don't need to prove myself to other people, but I need to convince myself that
makes so much sense. I hear a lot of people say that.
Yeah. Chris, did you feel the same collision, losing so much, then clawing your way back to sense of self through new voices?
Okay, so I think there's probably a bit of an ongoing process for me. So it took me a couple of starts to get into therapy. But for me, what really helped me maybe not reclaim a sense of identity, but actually build a sense of self-identity was my interactions with people at my workplace. So the thing that was stable for me was a workplace that was really quite supportive. So it wasn't even explicit. It was in looking at other people's interactions with each other people's interactions with me as well, and noticing that there was kindness and compassion and actual genuine feeling. And this was in such contrast to the group that I'd grown up in that had turned its back entirely on me. These people at work actually cared what I thought. They could see that I was going through something. They had no idea of what it was. And yet they continually reached out. Not that they knew exactly what I was going through, but they reached out, always tried to include me. And that was, for me, the very beginning of actually constructing what my identity actually is.
Yeah, it seems that's an ongoing theme for a lot of people.
Yeah, you realize that, I mean, and that continues. And I mean, therapy is very helpful and in an ongoing sense, but then considering what your own thoughts, views are, and actually interrogating them, thinking about why you act or react a certain way, or how you want to be treated, how you want to treat others, how you want to be perceived.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, how you perceive others as well.
Yeah, and there's no cure for any of it. It's just ongoing. It's ongoing work. You have to constantly work at it to feel better. You got to constantly question yourself, I think.
It's absolutely an ongoing process. It's just part of being human.
It is. It doesn't matter what it is.
So I just want to think about for a moment when you and I both had a similar experience of religion or a cult. When we think about some of that religious messaging that we've taken on over time, can you tell me about how that made you feel? Was there a lot of shame or unworthiness that came from that you'd taken on, that you'd internalized?
Is that a trick question?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I sat there listening to the word of God preached to me by people I trusted and agreeing with every word, nodding silently. Leviticus, Romans, all the verses about how people like me were going to burn for eternity in hell and deserve to die. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking in the back of my head, hey, wait a minute, I'm one of them. So yeah, I felt shame. I felt unworthy, and I've seen others struggle with the notion that their identity isn't valid because of their background. What about you?
Well, yeah, I think it's very much the same. I'd entirely taken on the fact that I was a problem. I was at fault and defective. I goes beyond guilt. Like it really was a sense of shame about who I was. It was nothing or very few things from that experience that made me feel like I had anything valid to contribute to those around me. I think what made it worse, probably particularly, is that you were also taught in the upbringing that I had that you couldn't trust anything outside of the group and your community. So it was pretty isolating to have that sense of shame and not have any outlet or anywhere to talk about it.
Yeah, because they'll corrupt you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the oft-repeated lines from cult was that the whole, and it's from the Bible, that the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, the devil, Satan. Repeated over and over.
Yeah.
You believe that? I believe that. Probably brings me to a point where you realize that for me that wasn't going to work going forward. Obviously took a long time to get there, but how did you recognize that your beliefs were no longer serving you?
Probably when I was a physical contradiction of my own beliefs. I would say my internal identity was so solidified in who I was, no matter what religious mask I put on, it just didn't fit. So when I was going through the church sponsored Bible program, and I was invested in it, but I was always asking, why is this? Why is that? This doesn't make sense. This contradicts that. And it was constant. So yeah, I couldn't keep her locked inside me anymore. If I had, she would have torn me apart, basically. Yeah.
So when did you realize that needed to change, or you needed to let go of those beliefs?
Probably during my Bible study program. Yeah. I think, I don't know, there was a reckoning was inside me. I can't quite pinpoint, you know what I mean? It was gradual, but it was sudden all at the same time.
You had a evolving level of awareness.
I believe I had an evolving level of not only awareness, but remembering who I was and how I felt when I was myself, when I was when I was true to myself.
What does that look like in practical terms?
I don't know. It's different for everybody. I don't know if I can actually answer that question at this time because I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah,
you know,
that makes sense. I get it. Knowing you or coming to know you as I have, yeah, I can see that you're fairly unapologetically.
I can only be me. I don't think that genie's going back in the bottle anytime soon.
No, I can't. I can't see that genie going back in the bottle either anytime soon. So you've talked about some of those experiences. How does your past and does religious trauma still affect your daily life or relationships even now? Is it still there?
Yeah, honestly, it still lingers around. Even when I think I've moved past it, sometimes simply just walking past a church or seeing a religious billboard or, the Jesus fish sticker on a car, it's a little triggering a little bit. I'm able to quickly push past it, not let it sit with me. But just the fact that it does trigger me even a little bit, it shows up in those little spots. But it also shows up in my relationships too. I still brace for rejection. Like the people I care about will suddenly decide I'm too much, like my family did and my faith community did. What's helped me is the community support. My partner is very supportive. Recovering from religion groups, secular spaces, and friends who let me be raw without judgment. Hearing the stories of people who've been through the same storms, people aren't scared of my scars, and that makes a big difference for me. So I hope I can make a big difference for other people.
Makes sense. I can relate to that. And just that last comment that your friends and people around you aren't scared of your scars. I think you probably found a group of people who are accepting, not necessarily giving us a free pass, but certainly understanding where it comes from.
Oh, hell no. And look, if I expect people to push back, if I say anything that's just stupid or, if I'm wrong about something, I want to be told and my friends are going to tell me that and I will tell them. I have no problems with having rational conversations and arguments with people, regardless of what the topic is. And that's what real positive discourse is all about. Not just from your friends, but from everybody. If everybody did that, it would be great. I mean, we wouldn't have such tribalism that we see today. But what about you, Chris? What practices or support systems have actually helped you carry on without it crushing you?
That's pretty big. For me, I think probably harking back to my earlier statements, I think being around, pretty healthy environments, whether they're work or friendship groups, for me actually works a treat. I do struggle not interacting with people, but going out of my own environment sometimes. So in a work setting, it's really useful because a lot of people in that setting think I am some sort of extrovert that's driven to go and meet people. But I really call group of people that understand where you're coming from as being really important, and also driving myself to stop getting into patterns of familiarity is very important as well. That seems to work. That seems to work for me. Having said that, love my own space, and I need that recharge time just to process.
Oh, I'm with you. I absolutely love being by myself quite a lot, but I'm not a recluse. I'm not an introvert in a way. I'm I think 50-50. I like to, be around people, but not all the time. I like to be able to pull it back, in my workplace environment. I'm a bull terrier. Like I'll get in there and I'll gather all the different people who need to know what they need to do and delegate. Like I can do that. No problem. No questions. Nobody even questions me. If they do, then they got to listen to me more. So yeah, I do like my own space. Even my partner and I, like, we quite often will watch telly in different rooms. So just because I don't want to watch, what she's watching and she doesn't want to watch what I'm watching, and we don't fight about the TV, I'll go in my office, whatever. I'm alone with my thoughts. I get to do stuff and things like this. So this is,
Yeah, makes sense. Joe,
yeah.
I have to ask you, are there any lingering beliefs, religious beliefs that, still hold you back or restrict you?
In short, I will say no, tentatively. Don't hold me to that.
Okay.
Only because I kind of forced myself to believe a lot of the stuff that the faith had taught me over the years. I was already pretty much against a lot of it before. And remember, I made an active decision to go into the Pentecostal faith.
Yeah.
I don't think anything really lingers now, but nothing comes to mind. So it's possible that there are some bits from my childhood growing up, but honestly, I don't think so. Okay, well, maybe the idea of only two genders. I don't know, but yeah, I do struggle with that. But
and that's probably broadly reinforced by a lot of society as well. That interesting.
No, it's not, and really, that's more of a modern argument, really, than you know what I mean. Like it wasn't around when I was in the faith; it was just assumed, and So yeah. That being said, self-interrogation time.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yes.
I'm going to ask that same question back to you.
Okay. All right. So what beliefs might restrict me or be there quietly? Well, I think having listened to your answers, given me some time to to actually cue this in my mind.
Are you saying I talk too long?
No, maybe sometimes, but we'll like talking. So you're on a podcast right now, so that's I think you're going to get a pass on that one at the moment. Yeah, it is. So thinking about it, I, like you, have certainly left behind the beliefs, the theology and the doctrines of my cult. I can recognize it for what it is, man-made development of, centuries of passed down theology, myth-making, and, well, fairy stories, if we're going to be honest. So I think that's behind me. What lingers is some of the behavioral elements in the way I might rush or jump to a judgment before listening, in the way that I take on and internalize criticism. I'm aware of these things happening now, but it's still a process to actively recognize what's happening and then let that go. So I think for me, they're probably a couple of the main ones that still have some sort of a hold over me. So it's not the beliefs. It's more the practices and the interactions. I mean, it was a very, very line kind of, you'd call it hardline right wing kind of cult. So just being aware of it really helps me to tone down some of those reactions, be aware of it, and leave behind some of the judgment and less useful practices that don't serve me. One of the things that really helped me is a friend of mine. I can remember we're sitting at a cafe and we were talking about religion and belief, and having left it, and this was really quite recently after I had been shunned and cut off, and he said, we're brought up to believe that it can be our whole world. He said, but really, it can be like a smorgasbord. We can take and look at other beliefs and practices and ways of being, of treating each other, and take the good bits from it. So that really stuck with me. It struck a chord, stuck with me. Let's take what's good from our experience or what we see out there and how we want to be, and use it in the way that we present ourselves in the world. I think that's been really central for me in building and developing my sense of identity.
Good answer.
Thanks.
I mean, yeah. So what strategies of healing practices have been most effective for you or those you've worked with?
Therapy works. It works. For caveats, I've to find a good therapist who understands religious trauma. I think the first person or therapist that I went to asked the question, so why didn't you just leave? Which is, it's quite flooring now. So finding a good therapist that actually can help you work through it and understand what religious trauma actually is has been great for me. It's really being open to what I see and experience in the world and what I want to take from that has been very useful. Intentionally listening without judgment and listening more broadly, but not listening to understand other perspectives is very different. So in the cult that I was in, we were taught to listen to hear what others were saying, but not with the idea of understanding them, because there was no thought that we would want to understand anything other than our own beliefs. It was to be able to best respond to the person on a doorstep, how they could align themselves with our beliefs. Whereas now, listening to someone else has a very different context. It's really listening to understand, their ideas, their thoughts, not with the idea of judging them, of converting them, but just to understand, to, offer friendship, companionship in a personal context or in a work context, understand what it is that they need of us, or to, check what the communication between you is. That's been very vital to me in actually understanding the world around me in a fuller way. And I'm certainly not perfect at it, but that has helped.
Okay.
So now that you asked me a curly one, I think I get to talk back.
Okay.
So for anyone that might be listening, how, Joe, can they begin to process trauma, to rebuild self-esteem, identity, purpose?
Well, yeah, geez. Okay. For me, it's, as I always restate this one, but for me, it's not choking back my emotions or my story, but telling it, getting it out. That's been very effective for me, but also being a recipient of that as well. So listening to others, hearing their stories, because hearing their struggles, as I said earlier, it validates my own, right? And that's powerful. Sometimes their stories are similar, sometimes they're worse, but either way, it makes you feel less alone. That there's power in that. That had such a big impact on me that I want to pay it forward. I'm driven to do so.
What does that mean? What does it look like?
Well, helping others has become a part of my own healing. I feel that if I stop helping others, my trauma could resurface, and I don't think I could go through that again. So I keep listening to other people. I keep hearing their stories. I keep helping. I tend not to give advice, but I would help them with the tools. Like I would ask them how, what have you tried? Have you considered this? What makes you think that way? Answer your own questions, but most importantly, just listening to them and acknowledging that, their trauma, their pain, their suffering is real. And when it was done for me, I mean, that mattered. So when it was my turn to talk, people listened. And now I want to be that listener for somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can fully understand that. And I think having now been involved with RFR for a number of years, I can really see that helps, because it helps prevent harm to others. And then once that harm is prevented, it helps others. You see it all the time. Others are then helping through various means others to share their story and that their own particular journeys. It certainly makes such a difference. In wrapping it up, if religious trauma is impacting you, please reach out through our website. We have confidential web chat and phone line for immediate support. Peer support through in-person and virtual support groups and access to qualified therapists.
And remember, healing is a journey. Join us next week as we explore deconversion and finding new meaning. See you next time.
See you next time.
Ciao.
Thanks for joining us for Unshackled from Recovering from Religion Australia. If you're looking for support, visit recoveringfromreligion.au. There you'll find a resources library on deconversion, religious trauma and more, our blog, other podcasts and RFRX talks, a 24/7 helpline by phone or live chat with trained volunteers, support groups online and in person in some locations, and the Secular Therapy Project, vetted secular clinicians. You're not alone. Be excellent to each other.